Becoming financially successful on your own can be really difficult if you don't have the skills and the habits really nailed down for you to be able to reach those big levels of income. In today's video, I want to talk about one habit that I believe, honestly, like if you can master this habit, you will honestly automatically become rich and forever in whatever business you decide to start. It's not that complicated. It's just something that's difficult to actually develop when you're working on your own. So I'm going to give you an example of a situation to really explain the habit that I want to focus on today. Let's say you're working a regular 9-to-5 job or a retail job part-time while you're at school. If your boss tells you to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, what time are you going to be there? You're obviously going to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning. If your boss asks you to do a specific thing at work, are you going to do that specific thing? Yes, you will. You listen to that person. Same thing for school. If your teachers ask you to hand in a certain homework by a certain date, you will hand it in by that date. You follow the rules. And yet, when you set rules for yourself, so let's say you say, next week I'll start my business. Next week I'll start doing YouTube. Next week I'll start cold calling. When you set goals or tasks for yourself, it's very easy to just ignore them once the day comes. I mean, how many times have you guys said that to yourself, that next week I'll start working out, and then next week comes by and you're still on the couch playing video games and watching TV? The amount of times that I did that is crazy. I cannot honestly count the amount of times I said to myself, okay, next week I'm going to start cold calling. Like I'm going to practice, and then Monday I will start cold calling. And then we come to Monday and I'm like, I can start tomorrow. I guess I'm not fully prepared. And then I'll just repeat that cycle nonstop over and over with every single task I have in my life. I mean, that's how I am at school. I mean, if a teacher gives me an assignment that's due in a month, I will do it in a month. Like I will not start today. If I have a homework that's due at the end of the semester, when am I going to start doing it? Last minute at the end of the semester. Naturally, that's how most of us are. And even I am like that. Yeah. Even with this YouTube thing, often enough, like today, I'm filming the video that I'm going to post today. I said to myself at the beginning, okay, Oliver, you're going to film a week's worth of video in advance all the time. So you always have a little wiggle room and you won't be pressured into making a video every day. And yet here I am making a video 3 hours before I'm supposed to be posting it on my YouTube channel. So as you can see, even I'm struggling with this habit. And if you haven't figured it out, it's basically the habit of being consistent and being able to set yourself objectives and actually doing them consistently every day. What would be the best option in, let's say, my homework situation? To do everything last minute, or to work on it every day until the deadline? Obviously, work at it little by little by the deadline. So most of you, what are you doing is you're pushing back the tasks that are actually going to make your business grow. And often enough, these tasks are the boring ones. So let's say cold calling. And what happens is when you do actually cold call, you'll often enough be motivated because you actually decided to do it. And maybe you can do 100 cold calls that day. Your first day you did 100 cold calls. Wow, that's very good. And now on the second day, you decide, fuck it, I'm going to do 100 cold calls again. And you get to 60, 70, and you start struggling. You're like, this is more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And what happens is that you kind of lose your willpower and it goes down until you're back to where you started. So what happens is that people are not able to be consistent. And if you can master being consistent, you will honestly be successful in any business you decide to start. What I recommend to develop this skill is to do something that's not too difficult for you to start, but also not too easy. So let's say if you don't work out, I think that's a great way to start. Start working out every day. You don't have to do crazy 2-hour workouts, but tell yourself every day I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out for as long as I feel like it. If I feel like working out for 20 minutes, I'll work out for 20 minutes. If I want to work out for an hour, I'll do an hour. And do that every day. What that's going to do for you is build this habit of being consistent and of doing things even when you don't feel like doing them. Okay? So if you want to do cold calls, let's say, instead of trying to banging out 100 cold calls every day and then burning yourself out, give yourself a smaller goal. Tell yourself, okay, I'm just going to do 10 cold calls per day. If by 10 cold calls I'm fed up and I don't want to continue, I'll stop. If I'm feeling it and I'm in the zone and I'm like, fuck it, let's do 10 more. And you decide to do 20 cold calls that day, perfect, you did 10 more. As long as you do a little every day, that's going to build your baseline. And as you work on being consistent, your baseline will grow. So eventually, let's say 50 cold calls will be your baseline. For you to do 50 cold calls, it's no issue. You're like, oh, I can do that in 2 hours, super easy. Whereas before, doing 50 calls would seem like something crazy, like an insane goal. So by just simply setting yourself consistent habits or consistent tasks that you have to do, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be the gym, it can be going on a walk. If you don't want to work out, then go on a walk. Force yourself to take a 10-minute walk every day, no matter how you feel. After a week or two, you'll learn to be consistent and disciplined to do the things that you don't want to do and do them anyways. Because it's easy to work on your business when you're motivated and you're full of energy. What separates successful people and people who fail are people who are able to still work on their business when they're unmotivated and they don't feel like it. That's when you really see the separation between someone who's good and someone who's not as good. Okay? And it's normal if at first you're struggling with your cold calls. Okay, as long as you can do 1 cold call per day. I'd rather you do 1 cold call per day than you tell yourself, oh, next week I'll do 100 in 1 day, because that 100 is not going to last. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. If you can learn to be consistent, you will be successful. The only factor that's going to differentiate yourself from you and another person who's doing a similar business is when it's going to happen. You know, for some people, their baseline might be 20 cold calls. For others, it might be 5. He might be successful in 6 months. You might take a year. But the point is you both are going to be successful if you're consistent. And honestly, just don't even think about the when. Like, when is it going to happen? Like, don't give a fuck. Just learn to be consistent and understand that eventually it will happen. Eventually, I will be successful. And it's going to happen. So yeah, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for listening, and see you on the next video.